The Aurora 16 is Alienware's cheapest gaming laptop, and with insane battery life, cool thermals, and decent build quality, there's a lot to like. But there's one big flaw, and it's literally hidden in plain sight. It's the screen. And while it sounds good on the spec sheet, the reality is a different story. Or is it? Because people who have actually bought this laptop are rating the screen as 4.9 out of 5 stars. So let's uncover the truth in this review and find out what the Aurora gets right and what it doesn't. The Aurora has an aluminum lid. Everything else feels like plastic, though Dell's website says the interior frame is magnesium alloy, which I'm guessing is inside the laptop. It's got this dark blue finish they're calling Interstellar Indigo, and the iridescent logo on the lid looks different depending on how the light hits it. Build quality feels pretty good. The keyboard hardly flexes under pressure, the lid doesn't move too much, but the screen can wobble a little if you're typing hard. You can open it one-handed if you're going slow, and the screen goes the full way back. If you open the lid faster, the front will rise up off the desk and smack back down. So either open it slowly or hold it down with your other hand. You can't push the hinges back too far because the screen hits the desk first, and the hinges feel smooth and sturdy when ripping the lid open fast. Fingerprints don't look too bad. This is after a week of use, and it's still relatively easy to clean with a microfiber cloth. The Aurora is on the thinner side for a mid-range gaming laptop, and feels quite portable. It weighs almost 5.6 pounds or 2.5 kilos by itself, increasing to 7.1 pounds or 3.2 kilos with a relatively small 180 watt charger included. The lower spec 4050 and 3050 options have a slightly smaller 130 watt charger. Its weight is fairly typical compared to other 16-inch gaming laptops that we've tested. Not super light, but not too heavy either. And it's lighter compared to Dell's older G16, which the Aurora replaces. It's still not too heavy when factoring in the charger. I'm just glad they're not using that massive 330 watt brick their old Dell had, as that combo was 33% heavier than the Aurora. The configuration I bought has Intel's Core 7 240H processor, NVIDIA RTX 5060 graphics, 16 gigs of RAM, and a 16-inch QHD Plus 120Hz screen. But it's also available with lower or higher tier specs for less or more money depending on how you customize it with the link below the video. And if it has a good sale, we'll have it listed on our gaminglaptop.deals website so you can get it at the best price. The keyboard has one zone of white backlighting, and all keys and secondary functions get lit up. Key brightness can be adjusted between 2 levels or turned off with the F9 shortcut, and there are no lighting effects. You can use the BIOS to customize how long the keys stay lit for, but I couldn't find an option to control this in software like previous Dell laptops have had. The keyboard feels nice to type on with clicky key presses. The only thing we didn't like was the tiny arrow keys. The power button is part of the keyboard, and by default an accidental press will put it to sleep, but you can change that behavior in Windows. The plastic touchpad is good in that it's accurate and works well, but the actual click doesn't feel as deep compared to others. Port selection is decent, but it would have been nice to have a Type-C on the side. There's no Thunderbolt, but that's a premium feature. At least we've got Type-C charge. There aren't any ports on the right, so no chance of cables getting in the way of your mouse hand, unless you're left-handed, where the locations closer to the front may get in the way. Unfortunately, there's no way of getting a Type-C port to connect directly to the NVIDIA graphics before the Intel graphics, meaning VR users will want to look elsewhere. But if you're just connecting a monitor, then this mix allows for better FPS with HDMI, or quieter fans in lighter tasks via USB-C. Getting inside requires unscrewing 10 Phillips head screws, though only 8 come out of the panel, and they're all the same length. The 2 at the back corners help open the laptop by lifting the panel, but I still found it a little harder to open than others, even with pry tools. I'll leave a link to these ones I use below. Inside, we've got the battery down the front, 2 memory slots just above near the middle, the installed M.2 slot on the right, a spare M.2 slot on the left, and the Wi-Fi 7 card above the installed SSD. Despite supporting the latest Wi-Fi 7, raw speed wasn't as fast compared to Intel or killer options, at least with my router. These MediaTek cards are about half as fast, but realistically, these speeds are still above gigabit and plenty for most people. Speeds from the installed 1TB PCIe Gen 4 SSD were great, and both M.2 slots are Gen 4, no newer Gen 5 here. Although the installed SSD is the smaller 2230 size, it can fit standard 2280 size drives, and both slots fit double-sided drives with chips on both sides no problem. I feel like they could have had space for a third M.2 slot here if the one below it was moved closer to the battery, but I suppose this isn't a premium gaming laptop, as 3 slots is very uncommon. The upgrade score was about as good as any other 16-inch gaming laptop, as we can swap both memory slots, both M.2 storage slots, and Wi-Fi. The speakers are found towards the front on the left and right sides, and they sound okay for a gaming laptop, but definitely more tinny than I'd like at higher volume levels. The Latencymon results were bad in our 5-minute idle test. My Aurora is powered by a 6-cell 96Wh battery, but there's also a 3-cell 60Wh option available in cheaper configurations. We didn't see any options for automatically lowering the screen's refresh rate down from 120Hz, so we did all testing at 120Hz, but you can manually change it to 48Hz. The BIOS has some options that appear to limit the battery's maximum charge level, which should help it last longer, as keeping it fully charged all the time can degrade it. Battery life was amazing compared to all other laptops tested, lasting for over 11 hours in the YouTube video playback test, and almost 3 hours in the game test, the longest runtime we've ever seen from any gaming laptop out of 250 plus models. Very impressive. It only lost 8% of its battery charge while asleep for 24 hours. But this isn't a fair comparison with the other laptops, as it depends on the size of the laptop's battery. Here's how much power was lost on average per hour, which is a fair comparison, and it used significantly less power compared to all other laptops tested so far. Combined with the exceptional battery life result, it's safe to say the Aurora barely sips power. Let's check out thermals next. The CPU and GPU are covered by a standard cooler with a heat pipe shared between them. Liquid metal isn't specified, so I'm assuming standard thermal paste. Air comes in from the vents above the keyboard, and from these holes on the bottom panel, rather than from directly above the fans, and gets exhausted out of the left and right sides, and from both corners out the back. The Alienware Command Center software lets us swap between different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are quiet, balanced, performance, high performance, and max. There's also custom mode, which lets you change the fans a bit, but apart from that, there's not really much that's custom about it. High performance mode can only be enabled with the F6 shortcut key. I've got a problem with the software though. After a fresh boot, it takes about 1 minute and 50 seconds from opening the Command Center software until you can actually start changing performance modes. This is a ridiculous amount of time to wait compared to all other laptops out there, and it was a problem with Dell/Alienware laptops a couple of generations ago. I thought they fixed it, but apparently not. Even after it's fully loaded, if you close it, there's still a good 13 seconds or so before you can use it. I don't know, maybe I'm just impatient, but other laptops are much faster. The internal temperatures are on the warmer side at idle, but it's fine. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst-case full-load scenario. As far as gaming laptops go, these temperatures are ridiculously cool. Performance, high performance, and max modes were all about the same. Interestingly, running with the lid closed was a bit cooler, despite performance not dropping. Using a stand wasn't really any different temperature-wise, but the fans were slightly quieter. The cooling pad I test with, link below, barely helped at 800 RPM. 1400 RPM made a bigger difference, and then it's almost cooler than idle with the cooling pad and laptop fans maxed out. The CPU and GPU performance was basically the same in high performance and max modes. Thermals aren't a limit in this workload, so full performance is always reached. And that involves the RTX 5060 graphics maxing out at 80 watts, and the CPU running at 30 watts, which is honestly quite low for this workload, and explains the cooler temps. To be fair, the processor only has 6 P-cores and 4 E-cores, so there also aren't as many cores to power compared to higher-end laptops. But Nvidia's 5060 can perform better by going up to 115 watts in other laptops, so it's disappointing to see it limited here when there's clearly plenty of thermal headroom available. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use. I've got the native results in purple and DLSS upscaling on balanced in red to boost performance. Max and high performance modes were basically the same, and provided a little boost over performance and custom modes, though those still run Cyberpunk at QHD Plus Ultra 60 FPS with DLSS on. Performance on Type-C charge wasn't very good though. The CPU can use more power in a CPU-only workload like Cinebench, where the GPU is idle, and there were only small differences in performance here too, with the best max and high performance modes only scoring 5% better than the lower balanced mode. This is the first Intel Core 7 240H processor we've had, and although we don't have others to directly compare it to, we can see that it's hanging out with other laptops I'd say in a similar class. The 240H is based on Intel's last-gen Raptor Lake architecture, rather than the newer Arrow Lake, which is why it doesn't have Ultra in its product name. Performance lowers if we unplug the charger and run on battery power, and it's still in about the same position relative to the other laptops tested. I was hoping for a better result considering how impressive the battery life and battery drain was, but at least the single-core performance is the same on battery power, and it didn't feel noticeably slower when using it on battery. As for keyboard temps, most laptops I test are in the low 30°C range on the keyboard at idle. The Aurora was warmer than this due to keeping its fans off at idle, but it only felt a little warm. The temps aren't actually that different in the same mode with the stress test running, as the fans spring to life. Balanced mode was similar, perhaps slightly warmer in the center. The rest and WASD area still feel cool. Performance mode is much the same, a little warm on the keyboard near the middle, but the areas you'd be touching while gaming are fine. The fans are fastest in high performance and max modes, and the keyboard is also a little cooler too, despite these modes boosting the GPU by 10 watts and the CPU by 5 watts compared to performance mode. The hottest point was near the center towards the back, but it was still cooler compared to most other laptops tested, and only felt a little warm. A good result, but that's in part a result of the faster and louder fans in high performance mode. Let's have a listen. The fans were completely silent at idle, which explains the warmer idle temps earlier. The fans get louder in the higher modes, as expected, with max and high performance modes basically the same. There's no real point using a cooling pad, as the internal temps are already cool when under load, and it didn't reduce the overall fan noise much either. It's on the louder side compared to most other laptops tested, at least when comparing the highest performance modes. As you just heard, performance and balance modes run a fair bit quieter, while still delivering good gaming performance that's not that far behind high performance and max modes. So you can absolutely run games with less fan noise. Alright, we need to talk about the screen, because it's the worst part about this gaming laptop. On the surface, it's not too bad. The color gamut is fine for a gaming laptop, the contrast is good, and it's able to get above 300 nits at full brightness. It's definitely not what I'd consider to be bright, but 300 or lower is what I consider to be bad, and it is brighter compared to to a number of other gaming laptops I'd consider to be in the same tier. Granted, most of those are a couple of years old now and cheaper. I had quite a bit of backlight bleed, but it didn't actually look that bad in person when viewing darker content, and this will vary between each panel anyway. Where things start to fall apart is in the average grey to grey screen response time, where on average it takes 27 milliseconds for a transition on the screen to occur, with the slowest transitions being close to 50 milliseconds. Ideally for a 120Hz screen, we would want to see an 8.3 millisecond response time, so this is far slower than what's ideal, and this just translates to the screen looking blurry with any movement. I'm by no means a pro gamer or anything, but once a screen is slower than about 20 milliseconds, even just moving stuff around in Windows looks wrong. At first, I thought I've just spent too long around expensive OLED laptops and they've spoiled me, but the data doesn't lie. The Aurora's screen is the slowest panel I've tested in the last 5 years. 5 years is a long time when it comes to tech. Things should be getting better. There are plenty of other budget gaming laptops that are often cheaper that have faster screens. But there are people who are buying this laptop and leaving reviews saying they're very happy with it, with the display rated a 4.9 out of 5 on Best Buy. It might just be one of those things where you don't have a problem with it until you've used something better. This isn't just my screen either. Dell's manual lists a typical response time of 30 milliseconds for this model. This really undermines it being a 120Hz screen, but I guess to be fair, other laptops with lower end panels usually have lower response time combined with lower brightness, lower resolution, and worse colors. So at least it's only response time that really suffers here. The slow screen response time contributes to a slower result in the total system latency test, which is the time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire shows up on screen in Counter-Strike 2. Again, you can absolutely play games and have a good time. It's just that there are faster, more responsive options out there. The Aurora 16 does not have advanced Optimus, but it does have a traditional mux switch to disable the integrated graphics for slightly higher FPS in games. You just have to reboot to swap. There's no G-Sync when Optimus is off, but the integrated graphics offers adaptive sync when Optimus is on, which should mean less screen tearing in games with Optimus on. The camera above the screen is only 720p, so the quality's not amazing, and it does not have IR for Windows Hello Face Unlock. Here's how it sounds while typing on the keyboard. Alright, let's see how well Alienware's Aurora gaming laptop performs in games. We've tested it with these settings for best results. Cyberpunk 2077 was running at around 80 FPS at 1080p ultra settings. Now, it looks significantly lower compared to the other results, but that's just because this is the first 5060 laptop we've tested. It still offers playable performance though, and is ahead of the last-gen 4060 and the more expensive Zephyrus, but behind the 4070. 1440p was closer to 50 FPS, but this is without upscaling, so throw in some DLSS and the game can still surpass 60 FPS at the native resolution of the screen. Alan Wake 2 was just below 60 FPS at 1080p high settings on the Alienware's 5060. The similarly powered 5070 in the Aero 16X was only 14% faster in average FPS, and the gap between the 4060 was much smaller in this game. High settings might be too intense for the 5060 at 1440p, delivering just 35 FPS. Again, we can of course use features like DLSS to boost performance. The goal here is to see how it compares to other laptops with native rendering. Black Myth Wukong was close to 60 FPS at 1080p high settings. Again, it's only just barely ahead of the last-gen 4060, while there's a bigger gap between the 5060 and last-gen 4070, and that's the case at the higher 1440p resolution too, just with fewer frames as the higher resolution is more resource intensive. We've also got the results with ray tracing enabled, with DLSS enabled. In many cases, the frame rates actually get better with DLSS, despite ray tracing being more resource intensive. So yeah, if you don't use RT, then FPS would be even higher. But I'll test the 5060 in 20 plus games at more reasonable settings for it in future comparisons. Subscribe for that. Here are the 3D Mark results. Content creator results were similar to the games, with the Alienware's 5060 a little ahead of the last-gen 4060, but behind the 4070. Though personally, I'd look at a different laptop for content creation with a better screen. The BIOS doesn't look as flashy compared to other brands like Asus, but it's functional and there are a lot of options you can customize through here that aren't available in software. But there's also an overlap with many of the options that are found in software too. Linux support was great, only my 6GHz Wi-Fi wasn't detected, and the F6 shortcut for high performance mode didn't work, so it must need Dell software in Windows. Pricing and availability will change over time, so check the links below the video for updates and to see if there are current sales. Because if the Aurora does have a good sale, we'll add it to our gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that every day to include all the best sales. So make sure you check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. At the time of recording in early August, it starts from $1,100 US for the RTX 5050 configuration, while the version I've tested with 5060 graphics but double the RAM is $1,500. But that's without a sale. So far, the lowest price we've seen the 5060 version on our deal site was for $1,100, the same price as the lower tier 5050. That full price of $1,500 is way too expensive. You can get a more premium gaming laptop from last gen with RTX 4070 graphics, which outperform the 5060 for that money. The sale price at $1,100 is a bit more attractive, but again, we've still had better quality 4070 laptops for about that price on the deal site before. But the price only matters if the Aurora is even worth considering. Let's break down the good and the bad to find out. Starting with the good, battery life is insane. It's one of the best laptops I've tested there. Thermals are excellent too, staying cool under load. Build quality is decent with low flex. It's got solid upgrade options, a customizable BIOS, good Linux support, and the screen looks fine in terms of brightness, color, and resolution for a gaming laptop. As for the bad, screen response time is terrible. The worst I've measured in 5 years. To me, it looks blurry in games, and even just dragging windows around. The RTX 5060 is power limited to 80 watts, which holds back performance a little despite there being plenty of thermal headroom for more power. The Alienware Command Center software is painfully slow to load the first time, taking nearly 2 minutes after boot just to change performance modes. And there's no VR support as USB-C can't connect directly to the Nvidia GPU. Add in a basic 720p camera and no Thunderbolt, and that $1,500 price tag before sales doesn't look so good for Alienware's budget option. Bottom line, this configuration of Aurora 16 with 5060 graphics wouldn't be too bad closer to $1,000, as long as you're okay with a slower screen, which a lot of people seem to be. But at the full price of $1,500, there are just better, faster, more premium laptops available. The thing is, Alienware has actually fixed most of the problems with this laptop, but only if you pay more for their higher tier Aurora 16X. I've actually got 2 of those laptops here at the moment. Get subscribed for the review. Until then, you can check out more RTX 5060 gaming laptops over here next.